Hello. Um, this is going to be the first commentary short that I'll be doing. How short this is going to be, I don't know. But I wanted to do it with something that is relevant to this little piece of footage that I'm going to be showing at the side here, and that with the volume off. And I'm doing this because this particular piece of footage, and that is being subject to quite a bit of controversy, being taken offline for reasons I'm not entirely sure of, and people are not really, the social media sites are not too keen on explaining why either. So, as I tend to post a lot of my stuff on LinkedIn, what I do want to put forward here, and that is the business and political case around situations in what is essentially becoming a totalitarian state, because there are considerations around the employment and your future investment considerations. Now, essentially what does seem to be the case here, and that is that from the political perspective, you can say that it's a slightly unusual case that we have going on here, in so much as that in the UK we're supposed to have policing by consent, and a rather forgetful officer here, and that seems to forget that the guy that he's grabbing hold of here, and that is actually probably the one that's paying his salary. I'm not too sure how much consent is being offered here in his determination to try to pepper spray him in the face. It's not really quite what you'd expect, considering all this is about is somebody not wearing a mask on a train, which is not a matter of law. So essentially, this is a guy that you'd have to look at it from a business perspective and say, well, this is potentially one of my employees. Now, would I be able to have any reliable business considerations in terms of cost-benefit analysis and in terms of risk mitigation if, for example, the guy's wearing clothes that kind of suggest that he may be somebody that works on a building site? So if I'm developing some level of construction at that particular point in time, what is the risk that I'll be holding if authorities are unlawfully preventing my employees from turning up to the site? And then it takes things in a little bit further perspective, in so much as that when you have a situation where particular public servants that seem to forget that they are public servants, they don't quite understand how that relationship works. From an investment perspective, you have to think, well, where is my money going to be best spent? This then obviously leads into political considerations again, particularly because anybody that's been following the Sisyphus complex solution, identifying the areas and that's where large amounts of money are being spent by the government, and a lot of the things that they do with the money and don't do, and basically abuse. So it kind of begs the question then that when I'm making an investment decision, do I really want any of my investment to be going towards any form of taxation? Because again, it brings into question no taxation without representation. You don't expect that representation to come in the form of somebody trying to pepper spray you in the face. So, as much as these, I'm sure there's a range of different people that seem to think that, because the Brits were the very naughty people that went against the grain and voted for Brexit. Naughty people. Shouldn't really have done that. That went against the plan. So do whatever we can, and that to enforce some level of punishment. in essence, if businesses did decide that, yeah, we're going to do whatever we can to ensure that any investment that we do make doesn't make its way through to funding unlawful, forgetful public servants that are no longer public servants but agents for an increasing totalitarian state. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, obviously that there has been some larger organisations, and Joe Biden himself making some really rather unusual inroads into other existing totalitarian states such as China. But I'm not too sure that the majority would feel similar to that. So these are the kind of considerations that people would take into account when exploring the situations and the nature of a particular city, country, etc. So it does play a role in business considerations. It does play a role in how politics plays its part in those business decisions. There are a couple of other areas as well, and that's how, I mean, say for example that you have the larger corporations that seem to be quite gung-ho for this type of thing. They do rather tend to forget the fact that the reason why they are large corporations because they have a large number of clients. Well, when you take over a totalitarian state and you push into socialism and communism, you remember the wonderful Margaret Thatcher expression that socialism is fine as long as you've got other people's money. If you've removed the client base, then you no longer have a large corporation. If you've removed the tax base, then you no longer have a government. These sort of very simple considerations don't really seem to sink in with certain people. So a potential suggestion for something like this is that again, whilst certain people tend to believe that they have all the money in the world and everything relies upon them, and they don't really take the client base into consideration, then those who in the real world, in reality, that do make these decisions on a day-to-day basis and that are by far the dominant private sector investors, they may well think, okay, we can still operate within those territories, but we do it in such a way that we're very careful as to what our client base is. We make sure that we understand that when we conduct things in such a fashion as that the government doesn't quite get the coffers filled in the way that they would hope, that the natural reduction in their workforce that would result directly because of that, there's a little check mark in those CVs there, and that's, you know, to say, well, you know, were you a public servant? Did you ever try to pepper spray somebody on the train for no reason? And you can put a little X by that box and no, we're not really interested in having somebody like that, thanks very much. So there are implications around this type of thing. So as much as people may not like to see some truth as to what the beginnings of a totalitarian state looks like, intentionally so, unlawfully so, and without the permission of any of the citizens, there can be implications to that, and there can be business implications. Oh, one other thing for I mean, I notice on LinkedIn that you also get lots of people that turn around and say things like, this is a professional social media site and you're not supposed to talk about these sorts of things, generally tends to come from the very same people that are the first ones to put their hand out for furlough, the first ones to suggest, well, my particular organisation, especially the people that work in renewables, my particular organisation very much needs to have the subsidies, the tax breaks. We're going to utilise, so example like Innovate UK programmes something along those lines, and that so that you can get some of your R&D paid for by the taxpayer as well. You're very quick to do that sort of thing, and then we'll quickly say, oh no, but we don't have anything to do with politics. Of course you don't. So, seeing as sites like LinkedIn don't like this particular piece of footage shown, and there's plenty of others, in particular, not just in the UK, and there's an awful lot of it coming out of Australia at the moment. What you might like to think about in this, and that's what this particular short is about, what are the implications around that? What does a business person think when seeing such creeping totalitarianism approaching towards them? Do they really? Does anybody realistically think that they're going to keep their money or any of their assets within the grasp of such people? No, no, that doesn't happen. So there's a slightly different spin on this. It's not just a case of, oh dear, look at the nasty policeman overstepping the mark. It's a little bit of a perspective, so that be interesting to see if this one gets pulled down and what possible reason there could be for that. So just a little short. I may do some more shorts in the future, who knows. Okay, so I think I'll call an end to this one, and let's see how it goes. Cheers.